In this video, we're going to take a look at the flexible audio and MIDI routing options available in Ableton Live, and we're also going to take a look at some of the features of the mixer section. Let's check it out. So I have this demo set here, and it's very simple. It has 2 audio tracks, and it has 2 MIDI tracks with MIDI clips, and it has 1 MIDI track with no MIDI clips on it. And I want to direct your attention down to this section of the channel strip. We have a section labeled Audio From, a section labeled Monitor, and a section labeled Audio To. And this is basic input-output routing. Now, the input chooser has several options, and if I click on it, you can see them there. First, it defaults to external in, and it's picking up the signal from my audio interface, but we're not using that on the track. I have several other options to choose from. Now, I have a few programs on my computer that I could use as inputs for this track, including Melodyne, Reason, Sibelius, and Waves Rewire, which is a protocol that allows you to use some other programs, such as Reason, as a plugin within Ableton Live. If you don't have these installed on your computer, they won't pop up. I have this resampling option, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. And then I could choose to have any of the other tracks in the session, including my reverb and delay return tracks or my master track, act as an input for this track. I could also choose no input, and that's fine because I actually already have a clip recorded on this track, and so I don't need an input. If I choose no input, this would also prevent me from getting like accidental feedback if I was listening out loud and had a mic active. So that's an option. However, if I choose one of the other categories here of inputs, then you'll notice a submenu pops up, and I can click on that and choose the options from the submenu. If I choose a different option there, then you can see it gives me other options. So the sub chooser here is dependent upon what you choose in the primary input box. Now, Audio To is where the audio is routed to. And again, we could send this out different outputs of the interface. And this will change depending on how many outputs your interface has. Or we could send it out to the master, which is the default option, the master track here. I could also send this to another audio track. Now, notice I can't send this to a MIDI track because it's audio, so I can only send it to audio. I can send MIDI to either an audio or a MIDI track, but audio can only go to another audio track. I could also send this to just the sends only, and then it's only going to be heard through these sends, and it will, the dry signal will not be heard through the master. Okay. I'm going to send this to the master, and if I put this back to the default settings of external in, you'll see that my monitoring section has popped up. The monitor section allows us to choose our source for what we hear on this track. When it's set to auto, which is the default option, you will hear whatever is already recorded on this track, that clip, unless the track is record armed. Once I record arm this, you're going to hear my voice both in the ScreenFlow software and you'll hear it in this Ableton Live track. It might sound a little weird, but here goes. Now you're hearing my voice, and it's going through sends A and B, so there is some reverb and delay on it. And so you're hearing my voice through the ScreenFlow software, and you're hearing it through this Ableton Live track. And that's because my monitoring section is set to automatic, and I've recorded on the track. If you were doing a standard recording session, you would want to hear what's being recorded on the track as it's recorded, and then when you play it back, you want to hear what you just recorded. And that's what auto does. Now, if you just want to hear what's coming into the track at all times, maybe you are playing the guitar live on stage, you have your guitar routed through an audio track here, and you have processing and effects on it, but you don't want to necessarily record that guitar you always want that live guitar sound to be heard by the audience, you would choose in. And when I choose in right here, again, you're going to hear my voice regardless of whether this is armed or not. So now you're hearing my voice on this track. It's pretty low volume, but you can sort of tell the difference there. And you can see the meter jumping in response to my speech. Now the other option here is off. And off is handy when you want to avoid feedback. Let's say you were recording a violin or an acoustic guitar in a room and the mic was in the room, but the monitors were also in the room. This can happen in certain situations. You may need to have the monitoring off here while you record to avoid a feedback loop. There are other situations where you want to turn the monitoring off, but this is just one option that you should be aware of. In general, it's okay to leave the monitoring on auto. Another important aspect of the audio routing here are these sends, and you've used these before, and basically Live creates two sends automatically, and you are free to keep them or delete them, but they are called A, reverb, and B, delay. You can modify them however you want, but when you crank these knobs up, A and B, that sends the audio signal to these tracks where they are processed through the plugins. So if I take this Snowpad track, you can see the meters for reverb and delay jumping because I have sent them to sends A and B.